5 years had passed since Clark Luthor left the world of Clark Kent. He had spent the time in the Fortress of Solitude with his reactivated Jor-El. He had been training with Jor-El's crystals. Now his training was over, and Jor-El thought it was time for Clark to rejoin the world. Clark stood looking around the fortress for one last time. He is unsure if he is ready to go back out into the world. Jor-El tells him he can't stay in the fortress forever. Clark thinks that since the fortress was made just for him, he should be able to hide in there permanently from a world intent on killing him. Jor-El reminds Clark that he was reactivated so that he could have a second chance. That there was hardly anything Clark couldn't do, but he can't be better unless he tries. Clark knew Jor-El was right. He couldn't stay secluded in the fortress forever, hiding from his problems. He needed to face them head on or remain the son of Lionel Luthor instead of the hero he could be. A young woman walked briskly down the street of Metropolis. She was too busy texting on her phone to pay much attention to what was around her. She looked up and saw she had wandered down a deserted street. She turned around to retrace her steps, but a menacing man blocks her path. She turned back around and find there was a second man blocking that way also. She tried to run into the street, but is caught by the two men. One grabbed her purse while the other roughed her up. She screams for help. The man pushed her down on the ground and kicked her in the stomach. There was a big gust of wind, and the two men were knocked down. Another gust, and they were tied up, and the woman's purse returned to her. She stood up and looked around, scared and shaking. She quickly ran away. Clark stood in the shadows and called 911 to report the crime. Lois Queen walked into the Daily Planet and greeted a few of her fellow reporters. She walked to her desk and booted up her computer. Jimmy Olsen ran up to her and excitedly announced to her that Ultraman was back. Lois stopped what she was doing and looked up at Jimmy's excited face. She claimed that he's been gone for 5 years. It couldn't be him. Jimmy tells her that the mysterious saves have started back up again. Lois asked if the bad guys were dead. Jimmy tells her that they were all tied up and turned in instead. He wonders why the change in MO. Lois mutters under her breath that is because that was not Clark Luthor.